It is my pleasure to introduce to you Liz Bovee, an amazing woman diagnosed with generalized lymphatic anomaly and an advocate for patients with complex lymphatic anomalies and their families. The title of her talk is Extraordinary Measures, the Patient as a Research Partner. Welcome, Liz. Thank you in advance for sharing your journey as a patient and your experiences in participating in research. Please tell us more about you and your diagnostic journey.
I'd first like to thank you for having me join you all today. Hearing so many clinicians and physicians who are willing to share their own advancements in research gives me great hope for our patient community and the future of our treatment options. My own rare disease journey began when I was 4 years old. I had bumped my neck one evening after falling out of a chair at the dinner table. Later that night, my parents found that I had a golf ball-sized lump on my chest. After seeing several specialists, my doctors determined that I would need to have surgery to remove what they at the time had called a cystic hygroma, which was growing in both my neck and my chest regions. My local rural hospital performed the surgery and then later transferred my care to a larger children's hospital. I was monitored over several years through various scans and testing before being told what I was eventually going to outgrow my condition and would not need to be monitored from that point forward. For most of my school years and my young adulthood, I remained fairly asymptomatic until a few years ago when I stopped at an urgent care center for what I had assumed was a case of strep throat. Upon inspection of my swollen lymph nodes, the doctor recommended I drive to the closest ER for further testing. As the ER department was concerned from the scans performed, I was then admitted into the hospital where I had a biopsy surgery performed the next morning. This biopsy led to additional testing and being seen by specialists from many different disciplines before I was given my own initial diagnosis of GLA. As someone who likes to be as informed as possible, this initial diagnosis led towards my own path of research on my own rare disease. My research eventually led me to the LGDA community, which has been an asset as I have worked to figure out my own path living with rare disease. Over the past 20 years from when I was first seen for this condition, it is amazing how far treatment options have come thanks to this community of scientists, clinicians, and patients. From only being given the option to surgically remove my malformation, to treatment options of sirolimus, and now more targeted future treatments such as alpelisib, it is dramatic how far the CLA medical community has advanced within just my own lifetime. There's a lot to be excited for within our future as a community. At this point, we have heard from the clinicians and scientists on all of their work advancing treatment options. One very important factor within this advancing treatment is the patient's role within research. So much of these advancements were not able to occur unless we as the patient community are willing to volunteer on behalf of not just our own treatment plans, but for our greater patient community.
Thank you, Liz, for sharing your diagnostic journey. Can you tell us a little bit more why you chose to participate in research?
Sure. My specialists were able to eventually refer me to the Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, which is where I currently am being treated. Towards the end of my first appointment, I was surprised by being asked if I was willing to agree to sign up and be a part of research programs related to my condition. This was honestly the first time in my life that I'd ever thought of being part of a clinical research opportunity. And I think I surprised myself at agreeing to participate so quickly. Having talked to so many doctors across different specialties at this point in my journey, I wanted to do what I could to help with research and awareness to help other patients as they were progressing through their own medical journeys. I'd seen how hard it was for my own doctors to identify what was wrong with me, and I figured if there was a way to help, that I needed to do something. So my first step in contributing research was actually a very small step. I agreed to allow my records to be reviewed by research teams and donated a quick blood sample that was able to be studied. I've since found other means to help our community through my participation with patient registries. Patient registries are ways that we as patients are able to have our records and medical history consolidated into one centralized system. As a patient who moved a lot during her own childhood, being able to consolidate my records from different medical organizations is really helpful. In addition to consolidating the records, organizations running these registries are able to desensitize the records, so researchers are able to track the natural history of rare diseases for their own research. The LGDA currently has a partnership with Allstripes to be able to help with our consolidation. Signing up for Allstripes was surprisingly very easy. All I needed to do was answer some questions and provide the names of the medical centers that I've been treated at over my life. And Allstripes has worked to do all the heavy lifting and reaching out to the locations and obtaining my own medical records. And finally, I'm currently working on transitioning from being treated utilizing sirolimus to alpelisib. Having had several surgeries as part of my own diagnosis, I was lucky enough to have several tissue samples that were able to be tested for the PIK3CA mutation. It's really strange to be excited for identifying a mutation, but because we were able to identify that I have the PIK3CA mutation, I'll be able to transition to a treatment that's more targeted and may work better than sirolimus in treating my GLA. Being early in the process for trying a new medication is the largest step that I will have taken for our community. Like I mentioned earlier, I've done my research and I'm hopeful that targeted treatments such as alpelisib are the next big step in treatment opportunities available for our diseases.
Thanks, Liz. That was a very good summary, and I really appreciate you sharing why you participated in research. How can our patients in our community participate in research?
Sure, and I think we have a slide that we're going to put up on the screen here. At this point in the conference, you've heard some of the top scientists and clinicians speak through their own involvement and advancements related to rare diseases. We wanted to make sure you all had the opportunity to learn how you as well can help our community through taking an active role within research. Like I mentioned in my story, there are many ways you can easily help. We have the contact information on the screen for several opportunities available to the community, and we'll also share this information after the conference. If you've not already signed up, I encourage you to sign up for both the Allstripes patient directory, along with our own LGDA patient directory. These registries not only help the medical community learn more about the history of our diseases, but also allow us to be able to consolidate our medical records within one centralized location. Having registered with Allstripes, I'm able to access my own portal through their website and obtain past medical records and notes from the facilities that I have visited. For patients who have not taken medication for the disease, there's also an opportunity to submit a blood sample to help Doctors Lacroix and Dillinger with their research. These doctors are working to identify biomarkers within our blood, which can be used to help identify our diseases. By finding these biomarkers, we may be able to help to detect these diseases earlier. Finally, a clinical trial is currently enrolling patients, which we may want to draw your attention to. We've been discussing the exciting treatment options available with alpelisib. This trial is for patients who have an identified PIK3CA mutation. In order to see if you qualify, please talk to your medical team to see if you are able to be tested for the mutation. If a PIK3CA mutation is identified, there are centers globally that are currently working to enroll patients for this trial. Finally, if you've not already done so, please feel free to reach out to the LGDA for support. I have found so much comfort in my own connections with fellow patients and their families through my involvement within this community. No one should feel alone when it comes to these diseases, and this community has shown me a lot of support as I progressed in my own medical journey.
Thank you, Liz. That was terrific. And just to kind of end up, what would you like to impart to our patient community, our researchers, and our clinicians about the importance of research?
Sure, and I think that this is very much a message of hope. As a patient who's seen so much treatment options across my own lifetime, I'm excited and hopeful for the future of treatment for our diseases. I'm grateful for the LGDA and my own medical teams for their continued support efforts to make a difference not only for my life, but also the lives of our other members of our community. The LGDA has really brought a place for us as a community to come together to help support each other through all the phases of our medical journey. Together, as a joint community, bringing together patients, family members, scientists, and clinicians, we are able to make an impact advancing treatment options, not just for ourselves, but for future patients as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, Liz, for sharing your very compelling and very motivating story.
Well, thank you for having me.